Hey guys, this is James with RogueDuelist Trade, and on this channel we talk about current and upcoming Yu-Gi-Oh product and whether or not you should invest your money in order to profit. So we're going to be starting a new series today on a topic that I've been wanting to go over for a very long time, and the name of the series is going to be Yu-Gi-Oh product pros and cons, where we're going to go over each type of Yu-Gi-Oh product and the pros and cons for investing in each and every type of those products. So for example, core product, deck building sets, structure decks, Gold Series, Legendary Duelist, Battles of Legend, Megatons. We're going to be going over each of those different types of products in their own episodes, and today we are going to be covering core product. But before we jump into that discussion, if you guys would like to get new and exciting Yu-Gi-Oh content for me, I just started RogueDuelist TV, where I do all kinds of different topics as it relates to Yu-Gi-Oh. Right now I'm doing a series on top Yu-Gi tubers then and now, going through the early beginnings of some of the top Yu-Gi tubers and comparing them to how they do their content now. We already covered Team Samurai and SEMO. So if you guys would like to watch that type of content in addition to Yu-Gi-Oh skits, deck profiles, etc., go follow me on RogueDuelist TV. You can find a link to that down in the description below. All right, guys, so let's jump right in. So I'm going to give you guys 5 pros and 5 cons for core product, and we're going to be doing that for all product in this series, as long as I can 5 pros and 5 cons for each of those products. But before we get to the pros and cons, I want to do a quick overview of core product. So typically you get about 4 different core product per year, and core product typically has 100 new cards in the set. So they don't have any reprints. They're always brand new cards that come into these sets. And if you want to know examples, you could look at Rise of the Duelist, you could look at Eternity Code, we have Phantom Rage that's going to be coming later this year. You can look at Ignition Assault, Rising Rampage, Chaos Impact, Dark Neostorm. All of those types of sets are actually considered core sets, and I don't believe Konami actually uses that term. That is a term that is used within the Yu-Gi-Oh community. So something else that's interesting about core sets is they typically come first in the OCG, so we usually know roughly what's going to be coming in those sets before they're actually imported into the TCG a few months ahead of time. Something else unique is that is where we get Starlight rares. So Starlight rares are unique to core product, which is basically the chase after rarity in those products to be able to help get a better return. Also, we get 9 cards per pack, and you are promised a foil, and we no longer get rares. Rares was taken out of core product as of Eternity Code forward, and there isn't any word from Konami that it's going to be coming back anytime soon. And there's no longer promised unlimited runs of core product. We did have that in the special editions, which they also ended at Eternity Code. All right, let's go ahead and get to our pros. And this is not in any type of order. So starting with pro number 1 for core product is that in these sets, we get all new cards and there are no reprints. And again, we do not get unlimited editions of this product. Now, depending on what side of the fence you're on, if you're a vendor, I think it's in your best interest that there is no unlimited editions, because that absolutely kills value of product. So them taking that out is a plus. But to the point of it being all new cards and why that is a pro is because when you only have 1 print of a particular chase card coming out of a core product and not having any other prints in the marketplace, then that is where all the value is going to go, is in that single print, and it also limits how much is in the market of a particular card. So that only means if a card performs very well into the meta or in a casual perspective, it is going to go up in value, and it'll be a lot harder for it to go down in value unless it does not keep performing well in the meta. And again, not having promised unlimited prints only helps the first editions maintain their value. So if you invest into a set and decide that you're going to hold on to certain cards because you feel they may have more meta relevance later that year, then that is actually a good thing to do, because we are not going to be getting unlimited runs, which helps dilute the value of those first editions. So honestly, from a vendor perspective, no unlimiteds is great, and having only new cards coming into the product is good, because again, reprints dilute value, and you don't necessarily want to get diluted reprints depending on the reprint. Pro number 2 for core sets is that we get Starlight rares. So Starlight rares is actually relatively new into the TCG. It was introduced in Rising Rampage towards the end of 2019. And now having the opportunity to pull a Starlight rare, which honestly, depending on the product and set and what the card is, that can range from like $200 to $800. I believe Appaloosa from Rising Rampage as the Starlight Rare sits like at $800 or so right now. And on average, you should be seeing a Starlight Rare, I believe 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 cases depending on the product. I think it's mostly 1 to 2. So if you are a vendor and you buy in large quantities like 5, 10 cases plus, you are very likely going to be seeing Starlight Rares. And if you do see Starlight Rares, that only makes your return on investment that much higher, because you're going to be getting these high value cards that only adds to your bottom line and makes it to where everything else in that product is even more profitable because you make your return faster. Now, something to be aware of though, even though the average ratio I think is 1 to 2 cases, there is the issue of clumping. And what that means is you can have 10 cases on the left side of the room, 10 cases on the right side of the room. All 10 on the right have a Starlight Rare, while all 10 on the left do not have a Starlight Rare. Depending on how those get distributed, even though you buy 5 cases, you could not see a Starlight Rare. I mean, that is possible. So even though ratio is 1 out of 2, clumping is an issue, so take that into account. Another pro for core product is that it typically comes in the OCG first, as I mentioned towards the early parts of this video. Now, why that is a pro is because you can kind of look at a crystal ball and see how well certain cards perform in the OCG. Now note, the format in the OCG is a little bit different because they have a different forbidden list, they have a different card pool, they typically have more cards in their pool than we do, but it's close enough to where you can see if certain cards perform very well. For example, like generic tech cards, maybe like Triple Tactics Talent before we actually had it come in. You could see how those types of cards perform, because if they perform very well, then that does give you more promise in your investment making that into the TCG. Pro number 4 in core product is that you typically get legacy support. As I mentioned, it's roughly a 100 card set, which provides a lot of room for legacy support for previous archetypes. So some examples are Sky Strikers, Infernoble Knights, Orcus, Dragon Maid, Plunder Patrol, Odd Eyes, Gaia support, Phantom Knights, Raid Raptors, Armed Dragons, just to name a few. So when you know an archetype is already very popular in today's meta or for casual play, and you know that it's going to be getting some level of legacy support, depending on what the card is, that actually can be very good for the product, because you know an archetype is already performing well with the current cards that are in the marketplace now, so you can assume that if it is a good card, there's going to be a high demand for it because value for its current cards within its archetype are already very high. Pro number 5 in core product is that you can get a lot of generic meta tech support within this product, and what that means is cards that can be used across a variety of many different decks because it's generic and it plays very well in whatever the current meta format is. Some examples could be Lightning Storm, Access Code Talker, Boral Sword, Ash Blossom, Forbidden Droplets, Triple Tactics Talent, Appaloosa, Pot of Extravagance, Borreload Savage Dragon, Fantastical Dragon Phantasmic, IP Masquerena, etc. Core Sets is the perfect home for those types of cards that is very generic support that can be used in a variety of decks and is extremely meta relevant for the format, and that is typically what sells core product for the most part. Is usually it is meta defining cards that are coming in core product that can alter a meta format. For the most part, most of these types of cards can be played as 3-ofs, like Forbidden Droplets and Triple Tactics Talent. Now, if cards are very meta relevant and it's going to shift a format and most people want to have a play set of those cards, that means there is going to be even more demand and less supply, which helps the value for those cards shoot up. Because if a lot of people are getting play sets of cards like Triple Tactics Talent or Lightning Storm, then that can only drive the value up because it is only one printing of those cards and everybody can use it in their decks essentially. All right, so now let's get to the 5 cons for core product. Con number 1. Everything is likely going to be reprinted in upcoming side sets and more notably megatons. This puts an undefined time limit as to how long you should be holding on to certain cards. You likely want to be holding on to cards no more than like 6 months to 11 months or something like that. Because by the time megatons come out, if those cards can be reprinted in them, if they are a very good card, they're likely going to be reprinted. And as soon as those cards are reprinted, value drops significantly. Look at Boral Sword as an example. His value, he used to be like $100 to get. Now I think his original print is sitting at like 24 bucks. This also makes holding onto core product sealed not nearly as appealing, because as soon as cards start getting reprinted, then the value is going to start diluting for the sealed core product even at its original print. Because the collectability for like meta relevant cards is not nearly as high as cards that are from the anime or support archetypes from the anime, and that is likely what is not going to be coming in core product. Now what I can say, Starlight rares may end up helping sealed core product in the long run, depending on the collectability that people put on those Starlight rares. Con number 2 for core product is that it is mostly meta cards and not necessarily collector cards. And the reason why that's an issue is because a lot of those cards, depending on how good they are, have a high likelihood of being able to be banned in the future. Again, Starlight rares do help because it does add a level of collectability to an extent, especially because they started including cards like Effect Veiler and DD Crow, which are kind of like standard hand traps that are likely going to last for a very long time into the game. But when you have cards that could potentially get banned, let's just say Access Code Talker, just using that as an example, that immediately destroys value for Access Code Talker if it gets banned. Let's look at Firewall Dragon as an example. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't get collector level legacy support that might be very good, which can help maintain value perhaps, but it is far less likely in core product. Another con for core product is that there is the possibility of getting low impact cards, which affects how many chase cards are actually in a set. These sets can perform very badly if they only have like 1 or 2 cards that are worth chasing after, because then all the value falls onto those 1 or 2 cards in that set, and everything else, the next highest value card might be like 10 or 14 bucks, and then everything else is in the dollars. You can look at Ignition Assault as an example, where all the value went to Lightning Storm, and there was kind of like nothing else in that product that had anything that was going for it to help it in its value. Another con about core product, which some people may argue, is the fact that you are always going to be getting a foil in that product. And the only reason why I call that as a con, because it essentially makes all super rares bulk cards. The likelihood is very low of getting a super rare that is even worth like $1. I mean, there's definitely some cases out there. Let's just say Mystic Mine is an example, because a lot of people would want a playset of Mystic Mine because it is a very irritating card to deal with into the meta, but the likelihood of getting those types of super rares is very low in these products. Most super rares are usually under like 50 cents. Most of the time they're like at the same value as a common. Let's say you weren't promised a super rare in every single pack. What might that look like if you aren't promised a super rare, but you do get one every so often? Can you make more money in the long run with it being a little more scarce? I don't know, but I would say it does kind of stink that super rares pretty much are about as valuable as commons in most core products. Con number 5, which is the very last point in this video for core product, is the issue of mapping. I would say mapping is probably most prevalent in core product. As I mentioned, I showed inside my Rise of the Duelist video how easy it was for me to determine where my ultras and secret rares were going to be in every single box. And the reason why that's an issue is because it really makes it to where if you're a vendor or if you're buying product, buying single packs or even buying boxes is not in your best interest. It is far riskier, and if you're going to be opening up that product, you're taking far larger of a risk in doing that, because it is far less likely that you're going to be seeing Starlight rares or certain rarities depending on if you buy a sealed box or if you're buying loose packs. Now, I would argue if you are a vendor, you should never be buying loose packs anyways, but you may be inclined to be buying sealed boxes, and I don't know if you could really call this mapping, but people could just pull a Starlight rare out of a case, and then the rest of the case is likely not going to have a Starlight rare, and then just sell those off for top dollar. That is definitely a risk that you have to take into account. All right, guys, so in conclusion, I am going to echo that if you are a customer and not a vendor, if you're just a player into the game, always buy singles. Do not buy boxes or packs. I mean, you guys can do it for the fun of it, but the likelihood of you pulling specific cards that you want to get is very, very low. Now, if you are a vendor, you should always buy in cases. And I would definitely avoid buying boxes for the reason I said before about your likelihood being much lower of actually getting Starlight rares. If you buy cases, you avoid that issue for the most part. And again, it increases your chances of getting a Starlight rare. The other thing to walk away with is that it really depends on what cards are actually coming into the product. how impactful are certain cards going to be coming into those core sets? How many meta-altering generic tech cards are we going to be getting in product? How many of those cards would be considered 3-ofs? And also, are there any fan favorite or meta-relevant archetypes that are going to be getting legacy support in those core sets? And lastly, how well the product is actually performing in the OCG, or how well certain cards in that product are performing. So being able to look into the OCG can be helpful if you're able to do that before you actually have to commit to pre-ordering. So guys, that's going to do it for our first episode on Yu-Gi-Oh product pros and cons. I would like to know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments below. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything that you would change? I'd really like to get your thoughts. And guys, if you haven't done it yet and you enjoy this type of content on Yu-Gi-Oh investments, make sure you stop right now, go down and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so that you guys will always be notified whenever I put out content. And also, if you want to support this channel by helping the YouTube algorithm, make sure you like this video. Again, that helps the YouTube algorithm and helps spread this content so we can grow this channel together. And again, guys, if you want different and unique Yu-Gi-Oh content from me, make sure you go and subscribe to RogueDuelist TV, where you guys can find all sorts of different series, Yu-Gi-Oh skits, a variety of different Yu-Gi-Oh content outside of Yu-Gi-Oh investing. You guys can find that from me there at RogueDuelist TV. And guys, if you are very interested in getting into Yu-Gi-Oh investments or already investing in Yu-Gi-Oh product, you guys need to highly consider the RDT Patreon. In partnership with ProPlay Games, we can help get you guys product at near wholesale rates. If you guys want to see what limited spots we have available, go down in the description below and check out the RDT Patreon. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's content. I hope you guys are looking forward to the next episodes of this series. Again, let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'll see you on the next video on RogueDuelist Trade.